Hi everybody! Hi Tamal!
Hey.
So, we are still far apart, far away geographically, but we are here together to continue our rereading series. Today we want to talk about the third chapter, Daenerys Targaryen. So, we are introduced to a new character, Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, whatever. She's in a whole other continent. We've seen only chapters in the north so far, and now we're going not somewhere else in the same continent, but to a different planet. So it seems. And she's there with her brother, Viserys Targaryen, who talks about the long and incredibly rich Targaryen history, and he's plotting to go back to Westeros, usurp the usurper Robert Baratheon, retake his throne by selling his own sister to a madman, a 30-year-old madman, wedded to a 13-year-old girl in order to have his horsemen conquer for Viserys the Seven Kingdoms. So
Yeah.
what was the first thing that caught your eye as you were rereading this chapter?
Well, the first thing you can see that Daenerys is like property. She's being inspected, or as the line says, her brother held her gown up for her inspection. So it's like like a play with words. She's basically property, and like she's, as we know Daenerys now, it seems like so unfitting for her, like how much she doesn't have any control of the situation at all. And she starts like at the lowest of the lowest. She's basically a slave. So
Yeah, there's
that's
a
the
lot
first thing.
of examples for that. We'll get into that a little bit further. For me, the first thing that caught my eye was how different this place is than Westeros in the north. So it means the world is so big. Now here you have people with different colors, different clothes, different smells, different customs, different religions, different politics. Everything couldn't be more different than the north. So that really like caught my attention now rereading. I was like, oh man, this is so interesting, so interesting. So let's talk a bit about the main characters in the chapter. Of course, the mainest of them all is Daenerys.
Yeah, Daenerys. She's a little girl. She's a little adolescent girl. She just got her blood, as they say. She's 13. That's very, very, very young, to do anything. In this world, being a 13-year-old girl, once you already got your period, that means, you can already be, bear children and get married. To be promised to somebody, you can be, even the minute you're born. But, the minute she got her period, she's a woman now, even though she's 13. So I like that. I mean, I like the realism in that. It's like in the Middle Ages, and in some traditional societies even today. 13-year-old is an adult already. Even in Judaism, the bar mitzvah happens when you're 13.
Right.
Which means that the ceremony itself is an adolescent ceremony. So when you reach 13 and you go, sing the Bible verses in the synagogue in your bar mitzvah, that means you're legally an adult. So that's like a remnants from old time, I guess, that 13-year-old kids were considered adults already.
Right, and she's there. She has grown up without her parents. She was born in Dragonstone, had to run away because Robert wanted to kill her and her brother, the last remaining Targaryens, a great line. And then they were changing homes and fleeing from city to city. And this is a very hard life. She's basically a refugee, albeit a privileged refugee. Like they never had to beg for food or for coin, even though they do call her brother the bigger king. And now, since her brother doesn't have anything left anymore, he's just selling the one thing, the one last chip that he's got, and that's his sister. So she has been very lonely her entire life, no affection, no love. The only guidance is a brother that seems kind of crazy. There's this interesting line where her brother tells her, Drogo is looking for another kind of mount. So that's how they treat her.
Like you said, she's a refugee. Even though she's privileged, she never had to wash any dishes in a cafe, or take care of the elderly. But
drive an Uber.
since her birth, she was always on the road, and her only safe place is like this house with a red door that she, go back to and like have some positive memories towards it. We don't really know where that is. She says it's in Bravos. She only remembered the red door. So that's like the psyche of somebody with no roots, basically. And her brother always telling her, even though she has nothing and they're on the run all the time, you're always telling her, this is your destiny, this is our destiny, we're gonna go back. The red door, forget about the red door, we're looking for an iron throne, what I'm saying?
Right. There's this line that she's saying, that she's talking about Westeros. She says, this land her brother said was theirs. So he told her that. She doesn't feel that it's hers. And you can contrast that to the speech that she gives Jon during that season, where she says, I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. So only later she started to internalize and appropriate what her brother said, mostly about himself. She said, oh, okay, well, it's me. At first, here we read it here, like she's imagining, like you said, the red door, and all. She's also imagining, like in a nostalgic way, Westeros, even though she's never been there, like idealizing it, great castles, great names of the houses and mountains and stuff like that. Yeah, that's touching a little bit.
The entire opening scene for Daenerys is that we read from her point of view is terrifying. It's really like terrifying. Imagine like a 13-year-old girl who, she's been pampered basically all her life, even though she had like a tough childhood. She's been inspected. It's very terrifying. It's very scary. She's really, really scared. She's really like helpless. She's about to be sold to this, general, violent man, I guess. And the way that Illyrio Mopatis, we'll talk about it later, Illyrio Mopatis enters the scene is like really scary, he's like big man with a forked beard.
And she's doing as she's told.
She's very obedient, she's weak, she's meek. This is her starting point.
Right. But through the way that she views the two other main characters in the chapter, Viserys and Illyrio, we get the sense that there's more. She's not just like this helpless child. She has potential.
But she is very perceptive, and we get a lot of info, a lot of tea about her brother through her eyes. And they're making deals. He's making deals, great, amazing deals to regain his throne that he never held. But she says like she knows the truth. I mean, the truth that is like the beggar king. They call him the beggar king.
Right.
They laugh at him. They in their travels, Daenerys and Viserys, they got mocked at a few times. They've been used, but he's still he's pretty much delusional.
Right.
And he's sure like this will be the deal that will finalize my reign.
Right.
I'll sell my sister to this warlord, and he will give me this army, and they will greet me back in Westeros as a liberator, the prince that was promised or whatever. And I have a sense that that won't happen.
I don't know. Don't count him out yet. But actually, he says as much. He says, when they will tell the story of my reign, they will begin with this day. Maybe this is a little bit of foreshadowing that this will be this is the first day we'll talk about Daenerys' reign, probably a short reign.
Yeah.
And also, not only people are laughing at him behind his back, it seems that Illyrio is laughing at him right to his face, but he's too stupid to notice. He doesn't seem That's smart compared to Daenerys, because if this entire chain of events, if this episode was titled Viserys, and it was his point of view, then that would have been a totally different story, and Illyria would have been portrayed as an obedient follower who just wants to serve the great king in order to get something in return at a later date. But she sees that Illyrio, she says, what does he want? Why is he helping us? She doesn't believe that all the things that are on the surface, she thinks there's a backroom deal that probably they don't know anything about.
Still don't know what he's all about.
Right.
What are his interests? His hobbies and stuff.
Right. Why is he so involved in the politics of Westeros?
Yeah. Why is he involved in the politics of Westeros in the first place? And the fact he's a cheesemonger, as Tywin Lannister we know would call him. He's a merchant, and for the Westerosi eye, a merchant is something like they always want to sell you something. They have no honor. They like money. Money is like a Jewish thing in a way in the Middle Ages. Middle Ages. So they don't care about the spirituality, and they're materialistic. Basically, not a lot of change since then.
Right. You wanna elaborate a little bit on the money being a Jewish thing in the Middle Ages for people who maybe don't know the context?
Well, usury, which means lending somebody money with interest, is not allowed in Christianity between Christians.
Right. It wasn't allowed.
Yeah, it wasn't allowed between Christians. But so the Jews, they kind of had like this, role in society that they could lend money to Christians. So they had, this is where it started. They had a role in society that got, was involved with money. So I think this is where it started, this meme.
Something about Illyrio, I think it's fascinating how different, how diametrically opposed he is to Ned Stark. Like we see from the first couple of chapters that the North, they're all about honor. What you see is what you get. If you are the one to give the sentence, you have to carry the sentence yourself and kill the person. Blah blah blah. But here they say that in Pentos there's no slavery, yet there are slaves. So the entire political system is made up of hypocrisy and a wink wink, nudge nudge, okay, officially this is the way it is, but it's frowned upon, but we can do whatever we want. Who cares that there is no slavery? We'll just call it by a different name. That also gives you a clue about how rich this world is politically.
And we see, maybe the starting point for Daenerys's, attitudes towards slaves and slavery. She doesn't really say if it's bad or not bad, but you kind of get the sense that she's old enough to see, like you said, the hypocrisy of the world, the lies.
So she learns straight away that might is right. If you have the power, then you can do whatever you want, no matter the laws, who cares? So maybe that informs us of her decisions, maybe the way that she conquered Slaver's Bay, not always, like sometimes she's a bully, she's a liar, she's doing whatever she wants, she tricks everybody, but this is the world. She says that Illyrio is creating a web of dreams for her brother, and her brother says our land like a prayer. So again, she doesn't really believe in it. She's like, that's her brother's thing. I also like how she says about 3-4 times about her brother that he has a borrowed sword. That also informs us about her brother. He's a king, but he has a sword that is not even his, and he's never used it. And this is why her instincts tell her that she has to be scared of her future husband, Khal Drogo, much more than of her brother.
Looks at Drogo. Drogo is very terrifying. He looks like Aquaman, and he has a lot of braids. That means he never lost a battle.
Right. And her brother has a
even
borrowed sword.
In the way she described him, like this demon archer, He's a pretty scary guy, and she's been sold to him.
Right. She thinks that he looks like one of Illyrio's like panthers, Black Panthers or something, which could be a little bit racist, but whatever. Also telling about Drogo, and also telling about Illyrio and about Pentos. Like the rich guys in Pentos, they have like their own zoos. That's so different than servants and whatever. That couldn't be more different than Westeros in the north. That's also interesting.
Yeah, well, a city in the Middle Ages in Europe was basically a plutocracy. I mean, obviously there are exceptions, and not every city was like that. But like the cities that grew up in like free, you know, like as a political unit of their own, were basically a corporation controlled, you know, political unit. You know, there were some groups, powerful merchants, monopolies, guilds that controlled the city, and they could do whatever they want. Pentos is a great example. Sometimes the prince or the lord was just a figurehead. So, and we know that about Pentos, that they have this prince that if the crops are good, then he gets to live. If the crops are bad, if, I don't know, some ship is lost in the sea with a lot of money in it, they kill the prince, you know, to appease the gods or whatever.
So, just to conclude Daenerys' arc, so of course she's starting at the lowest point possible. But at the end of the chapter, we get a sense that she has an instinct to fight again. It's still very raw, very primal, but like it says that she heard herself say, "I don't want to marry Drogo." So she has this instinct to speak up and say, "No, fuck this." But she has been, of course, through culture and everything, she had been raised to be obedient, so she doesn't really follow through this. But even though all that she has been through, even though she knows there's no point at speaking up, even though it's not even voluntary, but something in her say, "No, you don't want this." So at the end of the chapter, we get a sense, okay, this is like the little thing inside her that will just grow and grow throughout the story.
Yeah. A big theme in this chapter is nostalgia. It's very interesting that we get the first, you know, we already know some details about Robert Rebellion, and in the following chapter we'll know some more. But it's like we get the story of the rebellion from the point of view of the losers. So King Robert is named a usurper, like an outlaw, a rebel, and there's like this sense of nostalgia. Viserys is always talking about these glory days of the house of the Targaryen, and you know, that he needs to come back to get what is his, you know, to get his. And Daenerys is, you know, she's so scared, she just want to go back to, you know, a simpler time in which she had a lemon tree and a red door, and she felt safe, as safe as she could feel, you know, as a
right. And that's it.
Refugee.
Right, that's it. She doesn't want a throne. She doesn't want a throne. She wants a red door and a lemon tree. Another theme, a recurring theme for like each and every chapter up to now, truth versus myth. Like they talk about the fabled lands beside the Jade Sea, and there are priests of the Lord of Light, and Westeros is like a legend, right? So she has like an outsider's perspective of the world that we have seen up to now from people who live there. So that and that informs the story. That this is a story, of course, of point of views, and that you have to be careful if you believe every legend and every story. At first, we saw that people who don't believe legends of the others, they are wrong. But here, since we know that Westeros is not fabled or legendary, her point of view now, looking at it and believing the myth, is wrong. So, who to believe? You don't know.
I guess we'll have to read the books.
When she talks to one of the slaves who like pampers her, Like she tells Daenerys, Drogo is so rich, or so lucky, so rich that his slaves have a golden collar, which of course is like a golden cage, or gilded cage, they say in English. And then Daenerys puts on a golden necklace, which is like a golden collar. And the first thing that she notices when a slave comes to take her from her palanquin is that the collar is not golden, not gilded, just like a bronze, regular. So again, you have stories, and then you have the truth.
And Rhaegar, dying for the woman he loves, who is Daenerys is talking about when she mentions that. It's already a revisionist history talking about Rhaegar, like, he died for the woman he loves, and not he died for, saving the kingdom of his ancestors.
Right, and he didn't kidnap her, he loved her. Illyrio, being so different from Westerosi, like he's fat, but he's graceful. He stinks, but he has perfumed. And like he smiles, but you can see the crooked teeth through the gold of his beard. So nothing is as it seems. In contrast to the north, where if you say something, then you give your word, you can never go back on it, because whatever. And also, they have houses with pools, Itamar. In the Middle Ages, houses with pools. That's pretty neat. We're nearing the end. I wanna say something about one piece of writing that I did not like. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The old woman anointed her with spice flower perfume, a dab on each wrist, behind the ears, on the lip, on the tip of her breasts, and one last one cool on her lips, down there between her legs. No,
Brilliant.
that's not interesting at
Masterpiece.
all. At all. But also,
Masterpiece.
foreshadowing. Of course, the Dothraki sweeping the Seven Kingdoms when they get there. And also, she's told about Drogo. He's Aegon, the Dragon Lord, come again, and you will be his queen. So maybe Aegon is Jon, and she will be his queen. Boom. Okay, so what was your favorite moment in the chapter, Itan?
I like the chapter.
I have something. So on the one hand, Viserys is delusional, and everything, a lot of stuff that he says, we know that's not true, and could be even laughable. So we also think that he's paranoid when he says that the usurpers' hired guns are after him everywhere. They want to kill him, and like, who wants to kill you? You're a fucking beggar king. But no. He is the usurper. Is sending people to kill him. So in that sense, he's right. So that's a nice twist.
That just because he's paranoid doesn't mean he's not right about him being persecuted like that.
Right. So we're back to my favorite thing. Basically, is all the different contrasts within the telling of the story and all the different POVs, even within Daenerys' POV. It makes everything like super layered.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue our rereading videos. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support our work, that would be greatly appreciated. You can go to our Patreon page at gotacademy.com or patreon.com/gotacademy. A lot of extra content for you patrons, and if you're already there and you're pledging an amount, know that for $5 you get to live stream with us every month. So hope to see you there on Patreon, and here we'll see you all next time. Bye, Tamam.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.